At the edge of a small town, away from prying eyes, stood the old house on the hill, shrouded in dark legends and fears. Its outlines, majestic, yet threateningly dilapidated, loomed over the surroundings like a reminder of ancient horrors. The doors, like black mouths, were sealed with rusty locks, and the windows, resembling empty eye sockets, gazed disdainfully at the world, hiding internal secrets. The walls, covered with moss and lichen, cracked with age, their color darkened, as if they had absorbed the bitterness and suffering that occurred within. Laurel trees, with their twisted branches, surrounded the house, casting ominous shadows that seemed to live their own lives. The wind sometimes whispered through the branches, as if conversing with those daring enough to approach. According to local rumors, the house was built over 100 years ago by a noble family, but soon after its completion, inexplicable events began to unfold. Guests who came for parties disappeared without a trace. In the morning, they were nowhere to be found, but their presence lingered in the air, a faint scent of old perfume, and the sound of crunching footsteps, as if they still wandered the halls. One day, a group of brave young people decided to investigate the legends. Gathering their courage and flashlights, they made their way to the house, each step growing heavier, as if their strength was fading. Upon entering, they were met with a dense atmosphere filled with fear and oppression. The floors creaked under their feet, as if warning them against further advancement, and the silence was so thick it could be cut with a knife. Inside, a suffocating quiet reigned, broken only by the echo of their footsteps. The rooms were filled with antique furniture, covered in dust and cobwebs, as if time had stopped. Each item seemed to harbor its own dark secrets. The air was saturated with the smell of dampness and decay, piercing their nostrils like a reminder that the house remembered every tragedy that had unfolded within its walls. Then, they approached an old piano standing in the corner, its keys coated in dust. Suddenly, as if by the wave of a magical wand, the piano began to play a melody, gentle, yet tinged with sorrow, as if a ghost were calling to them. The young people froze in terror, unable to look away. Each chord resonated in their hearts, evoking memories of lost souls. But then the flashlight beams began to flicker, and tension hung in the room. The walls seemed to tremble from an unseen force, and a chill crept under their skin. One of them, feeling a growing unease, turned around and saw a shadow rising from the wall. It was the figure of a woman in a white dress, her face twisted in agony. Her empty eyes, filled with tears, stared at them as if pleading for help. In that moment, the house began to hum, as if it were a living being, thickening the atmosphere with terror. Whispers mixed with screams echoed from every corner, and the young people realized they were not alone. Ghosts of those who once lived here floated in the air, their dark stories seeking release. A loud crack echoed, and the floors started to give way beneath them, as if the house were trying to swallow them whole. In a panic, they ran toward the exit, but the doors that had just opened were now locked tight. A cold breath brushed against them, and ghostly voices whispered their names, inviting them to stay forever. Fear consumed them, and they began to scream. Finally, one of them managed to break free from the grasping shadows, and, with a burst of adrenaline, flung open the door. At that moment, everything around them shook, as if the house were trying to hold them back. Fresh air and moonlight became their salvation, and they stumbled down the slope, gasping for breath. Glancing back, they saw the house begin to dissolve into the fog. Its walls warped, and the windows were illuminated by a sinister red light. as if the house loathed its guests. The legend of the old house on the hill was not just a rumor. It was a true hell, ready to engulf anyone who dared to enter. Since then, no one dared to approach the house. But sometimes, when the wind fell silent, distant echoes of a piano playing a mournful melody could be heard. It was impossible to forget that night, when the young people bore witness to the grim legacy left by the old house on the hill. A house that would always await its next victims.